Understanding the differences between China today and the Soviet Union during the last Cold War is a good place to start when assessing the main differences between the geopolitical contest that defined the second half of the 20th century and the one that will define the first half, at least, of the 21st. As the Soviet Union did before, China today constitutes the dominant magnetic pole of a form of government and international outlook that is the rival of the community of states, led by the United States, that define themselves as liberal democracies. But as we shall see, China poses a more significant structural challenge to the US and its allies than did the Soviet Union. Why? Because China is still at the beginning of marshalling its growing power to the service of its foreign policies, and its sources of power are more extensive and diverse than those of the Soviet Union. The inherent limits of Soviet power. The Soviet Union's elevated position in international affairs after 1945 had much to do with its role as one of the main two victors, alongside the United States, at the end of the Second World War. By most measures, the USSR reached its relative peak during the first decade of the First Cold War. In December 1945, it occupied all Central and Eastern Europe, and by 1948 had engineered Communist Party rule throughout the region, with most governments indirectly controlled from Moscow. These countries then came together along with the Soviet Union in 1955 under the umbrella of the Warsaw Pact, a military alliance led by Moscow and supposedly designed to protect its members from attack by the US-led NATO alliance. The Warsaw Pact and its economic counterpart, Comecon, provided the Soviet Union with a large geographic buffer to its west, from which the principal invasions and threats to its territorial integrity had emanated for the previous 5 centuries. And they gave the Soviet Union an economic and strategic weight well beyond its own intrinsic human and material resources. The Soviet Union's role as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council and as a leading nuclear-armed state also enhanced its security and global standing, and its self-sufficiency in natural resources, especially oil, gas, coal and food, added to its ability to follow an autarkic path, much like the US had done until it was drawn into Europe's 2 major wars. But as former US National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski presciently wrote in 1986, "The Soviet Union is like a giant with steel hands but rotten innards. It can crush in its grip weaker opponents, but a spreading corrosion is eating away at its system.